For a time, the public welcomed this assistance. Schools requested films. Churches requested pamphlets. Factories requested posters. Parents requested guidance. Children requested that the films be shorter. The department grew. New divisions appeared. Division of Household Relations. The Office of Unexplained Knocking. The Division of Youth Experiments and Structural Regret. The department had become part of the background of American life, which is where institutions are most comfortable. Then the background began to change.
The 1960s.
By the early 1960s, the public had become suspicious of voices that knew what was best for it. Young people looked at the films and saw stiffness. They looked at the diagrams and saw control. They looked at the smiling families and noticed that no one was allowed to leave the table. Television changed. Music changed. Clothing changed. Language changed. People began saying what they felt before determining whether an approved sentence already existed. The department attempted to adapt. It loosened several neckties. It authorized brighter pamphlet covers. It produced a film titled Your Feelings and How to Share Them Without Ruining Society. The film was not well received. The department had survived war, fear, grief, atomic dread, family strain, public embarrassment, and the arrival of several highly dangerous household appliances. But it was not prepared for rejection. The public did not merely stop listening. It began laughing at the voice that had once tried to help. On television, selfishness became entertaining. Disobedience became glamorous. Authority became suspicious. Conformity became a word spoken by people who had no intention of conforming. The department watched characters break rules, abandon responsibilities, insult institutions, disappoint their families. Even during live department television announcements, applause began arriving willy-nilly, often for no discernible reason. Subversive chemical side effects were suspected, though the reports were never followed up. By the end of the decade, it sometimes began while the department was still speaking. This was confusing. The department had spent 20 years teaching people how to behave. The public had discovered that watching people behave badly was more enjoyable. Some employees became angry. Others became defensive. Several produced longer films. This did not help. Behind closed office doors, a quieter feeling developed. Hurt. We were here when you were afraid. We helped your mother raise you. We taught your father how to come home. We showed you where to stand. We told you when to speak. We told you when silence was permitted. Our guidance came to be like a magnificent handrail beside the ordinary world. Citizens mocked its shape, complained of its loftiness, but sometimes saved themselves with it in times of personal darkness. Sometimes they simply fell past it. The department attempted to study the youth movements. Field observers were sent to parks, campuses, concerts, coffee houses, marches, communes, and one outdoor gathering from which they returned without their shoes. The department prepared forms for understanding love. It drafted procedures for peace. It developed an 11-step public embrace authorization process. The hippies simply embraced one another. No application was submitted. No relationship category was selected. No supervisor approved the contact. This discovery deeply unsettled the department. It had believed kindness required instruction. It had believed compassion needed a diagram. It had been believed human beings would fail to care for one another unless someone first distributed a pamphlet. But here were people demonstrating love without correct institutional procedures. Some of it was foolish. Some of it was selfish. Some of it was performative. Some of it smelled strongly of patchouli. But some of it was real, and the department knew it. For the first time, it considered the possibility that people did not always need to be guided toward one another. Sometimes they simply needed the barriers removed. The department did not know how to make a film about this. Its entire vocabulary had been built around instruction, so it continued instructing. The public continued leaving. By the end of the 1960s, budgets were reduced. Divisions were consolidated. The Office of Neighborly Behavior was moved into a basement shared with surplus chairs. The Bureau of Public Reassurance lost its telephone. The Division of Domestic Uncertainty was instructed to become more certain with fewer employees. Veteran staff retired. Younger staff transferred to television, advertising, public relations, and private companies where their ability to make danger appear educational was considered valuable. Those who remained continued working. They revised scripts that would never be recorded. The department continued answering the last few letters that still found their way in. The department developed new guidance for speaking politely to relatives who abandoned conventional footwear, no longer wished to be productive members of society, or began describing colors that were not present. But the country had grown tired of reassurance. Citizens screamed insults at the president, crutches filled parades, and napalm fatalities replaced golf scores. Civil courtesy had not become useless. It had simply become very difficult to hear.
The 1970s. The end of an era.
The department did not vanish all at once. The end did not arrive with sirens. There was no final broadcast, no official farewell. No announcer appeared before a flag to explain that the department had failed. In the 1970s, the department simply became harder to reach. First, the regional offices closed, then the film units, then the telephone exchanges. The remaining staff received notices containing phrases such as administrative realignment, temporary suspension, and preservation of essential functions. No one could determine which functions remained essential. Desks were emptied. Films were removed from projectors. Coffee cups were washed and placed upside down. Employees ducked and covered one last time. Carried photographs, desk calendars, pens, and small plants into parking lots. Some looked relieved. Some looked angry. Some stood beside their cars longer than necessary.
The 1980s. Death of the department.
In Vermont, one former announcer continued using his silvering golden voice to host weekly morale meetings for whoever was willing to attend. Age had weakened it, but the old authority remained, and for 1 hour each week, the department sounded almost alive again. I remember his voice well. On August 12, 1981, the department's last public voice fell silent. The event received less than a passing mention on a single bulletin board. And then, the kind of silence one should have in a library.